Okay, I'm a big believer that there's no good channel without personal story. And this is my channel Connectivity. My name is Tatiana, and I'm gonna share with you all visitors and my subscribers and friends with my personal story, which is there's no more personal than meeting with Jesus Christ or meeting Jesus Christ in my life. And there's like a few episodes. Basically, I would say there's like three big parts. But I'm gonna try today to stay really short, so you guys are not getting like too lost in all the stories, etc. So I was born in Soviet Union, and basically our culture in Soviet Union, not like a Russian culture, not like many people are thinking, but basically Soviet Union culture was not including faith in God. And it's not because it was that way, and many people didn't even know it is possible. So many people didn't even hear there's possibility to put your faith in God, because there was no God. Like a human being was God. That was proclaimed all around the places in our I don't know, like buildings, in our manufacturers, etc. So I grew up basically in a family. I don't want to say they're not believers, but I couldn't say they are believers. So I remember at first my questions about God, if there's God, or actually I didn't think if there's God. I was thinking, what is the purpose of our life? And I was always kind of thinker, a little bit like a too dramatized. So I remember being 5-6 years old, I was asking my mom, what is the purpose for our life? And I remember she said, I don't know, maybe getting married, finding a good job, having kids, letting kids grow, and kind of seeing fruits of their life and everything. And I said, then what? And she would say, kids will have their kids and you're kind of enjoying this. And for me, I remember so clearly, I got almost desperate because it was just not enough for me. So remembering roughly from like that year age up to 13 years or something, I was always on the search, what is the meaning and purpose of our life? So I was probably 9 years old, and my grandma put me into baptism in Orthodox Church, which is very much different than an evangelical church where I'm at right now. But I remember this a feeling of such a joy, and it wasn't very much discussed with my parents and they did not appreciate that much independence of my grandma. But she just she was kind of very much a character, and she said something like, because I said so. She lived separate from us. But I remember my mom, she didn't protest, but they were just aware because my dad, it was a little bit easier already at that time. But if it would be a few years ago, before I was born, the same situation could bring my dad to lose his job and to have a big problem for my mom also. So I remember this feeling of joy. As I said, I didn't know what's going on, but it was just I remember I felt like butterflies in my heart so much. So I constantly was seeking for something. And then I started to go, my relatives were in Baptist church. Actually, it was my aunt, my dad's sister, and her kiddos, grandkids. And we were just in such a good relationships, really buddies and friends. So I always wanted to go to church so much. And I remember I couldn't get almost a single word I would hear in the sermon, because it was very much a dogmatic. But I remember I was really listening, and I just felt so much God is talking to me. And I remember feeling a spring in my heart. So I got one at one point that there is hell and there's heaven, and after you die. And unfortunately I knew what is death, because at that age, now I understand, I believe that God did allow me to go through those deaths and to realize that, how can I say, there's no way out when there's death. So it cannot be just, like a recovered, it can be just like a, like a rewind and replaced again or something. So death is death. So being a young child, I understood there's like especially when it was like a few people like close to me, and like one of them was my mom's close friends. I loved her very much, and she passed away from cancer, and she had a younger son who was my age, and it was like roughly 4 years old probably. And I remember this, like I feel so sorry for this little guy that his mom never comes back. And that all just like all these feelings mixed together. And then when my mom says there's like a, let's say, showing that she kind of doesn't know exactly what's the point of existence, I was always looking. And then in Baptist church, I heard about God. There's hell, there's heaven. And I'm like, okay, I don't get this stuff, but I know there's God who might hear when you talk to him. When you ask him about something, he might respond to you. And my first prayer, I remember that my mom was very much conservative about how we would spend money. They taught us always to pay back with money if somebody, if you borrowed from someone, and always like save, set aside, like to be really thinking when you're using how you're using your money. Even though like I can say in the USSR it was like this, and you have to work hard to actually earn something. So I remember I was asking really like a nice doll, like looking like a real baby, like a baby born or something you guys had. And my mom said, no, that's too expensive. It's like, she said, Tanya, you got so much. Yeah, Tanya, this is my like a nickname. She said, Tanya, you've got plenty of nice dolls and all kinds of stuff for them. You don't need this one. But this one was a bigger one, and I loved kids since I was a child so much. So it was like my little kiddo. And I thought like, how about if I'm gonna try to pray and ask Lord about that? And I did. So I did ask a doll if it is possible. So I can tell you, think not more than a few days later, because probably God knew how impatient as a child I was. Few days later, Mom brings to me like some package. She opens this, and I can see this is that exactly doll I dreamed about. And I remember like a clink. That works actually. But when I looked at this doll, so like listen to me, like how brave and at the same time, I don't know, fearless you are as a child. So like brave in your faith. I'm like, that's red dress. This is not exactly color I like. And I prayed and I thought, God, if it is possible, like a blue dress, because this is red dress. And I kind of like a blue color. And the next day, my mom comes to me and she says, Tanya, do you really like this like a color and dress and everything? Because there's another option, green one, gray one, and blue one. I said, ding, ding, ding. I want a blue one. So Mom went over there, so she exchanged. So I had a blue dress, awesome baby doll, having in my arms, and I knew he does exist. So that was my first prayers. And then it was like my prayers were so like a funny. Sometimes I would say, oh, I just want to move. For me, I thought it's so exciting to move somewhere else. And by the way, by the age of 13, we did move to different town, to the capital of our country. And that's how I started my journey. But at one point, I got to the border where I realized everybody goes to hell because everybody's a sinner. But what I didn't get for some reason, I thought you have to be born in a Christian family to actually go to heaven and avoid hell. Let's say I didn't think much about heaven, but I definitely didn't want to end up in hell. And I remember that was like I would say for quite a long time, at least for me, I felt so much grief for not for myself, myself, but for my family, who like would end up in a hell just because we were not born in Christian family. And at that time in the Baptist family, I remember like playing with those like we call them nieces and nephews. You guys call them like a second cousin or something, and the same age. And I was so like a jealous for them that they will be there because they were born in the right family, and I won't because I wasn't born in the right family. And I remember like a question, like feel like this is just so sad. There's no way out. But now I know for sure like our God is awesome God, and there's always way out as long as you're breathing and you're like a questioning and calling upon God. And at the age, I believe like 13 or 14, my cousin actually was preaching, and this sermon was something about Book of Life. And it was for me, you know what's funny? I didn't even hear anything about Jesus Christ for some reason. Somehow I didn't get to this point, but I didn't know there's a God, and there's Book of Life, and there's possibility to be in this Book of Life. And the only thing you have to do, you have to ask God to write your name in this one. And I remember after the sermon, I was like so patiently waiting. The sermon is done. I came to my cousin. We were really great relationship. He was like a dad to me, kind of like an age, but he was a friend at the same time. So I came to him and I said, I really want to ask God to write my name in the Book of Life. And I remember I was trying kind of like to hide, but at the same time I remember he's like, brothers and sisters, my cousin, she wants to like ask Lord to write her name in the Book of Life. And I was like, no, that's not, I don't want everybody to see that. But I know this passion overcame all this fears and shame and everything. So I remember like crying, like really asking, Lord, please write down my name in the Book of Life and everything. And I remember this awesome joy and peace coming into my heart. I had no idea what just happened. And but by the way, this is part one, how I just find like a relationship with God. I remember thinking and questioning, now what's going to happen with my parents? Then when I started to be burned in my heart, I want my family to experience the same I do. Because now my name is in the Book of Life, and I want my family to be in the same book. And that's when I started my prayer. And I was like at 13 or 14. So I keep praying until now. My mom is a believer already. She was already like, let's say, we're kind of sticking together, praying for each other, etc. But I want like everyone who's listening right now, do not disappreciate the age you started your journey with God. You think I was just so like not knowing what's going on. I was like 3-4 years old, so it doesn't count or any of that, because I met those people. They do not appreciate work of Holy Spirit about when He started to call you in your heart while you're so innocent, and then He brings this awesome opportunity and counting Him. Then we go our own rough life and everything. There's like part 2 for my testimony. But I want to tell you, like, for sure, this is very important. And if you remember being adult, that you heard some really like a quiet, like a tender, gentle voice in your heart, you couldn't resist it. And you're really running for it. Doesn't matter what happened after that, but you're praying and asking Lord to come into your life, into your heart, however it was. Believe me, that was the true one. So that happened in my life. There's a lot happened until like at my age, until like now, like moving me to US, getting married, American, awesome guy, having 2 kids, etc. But that was the huge first part, which was basically foundation when God started the awesome journey with me. Actually, He started before I was born, right? You know that. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for encouraging me to have this testimony, and especially it's like kind of like for me it's like because I have it in English. I'm gonna try to do it like